Hello, hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Is everyone excited? I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Thanks for everyone watching live, everyone who's watching back. This is Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today we're going to be talking about Roe v. Wade, and potentially it is all going down in flames. And I gotta admit, I wasn't too I wasn't expecting a broad sort of sweeping thing. Not because it didn't make sense for it to get struck down. It did. But I felt it was safer to be pessimistic about it, I suppose. But it looks like it's going to be a 5-4 ruling right now. But there was a leak last night of the entire draft from Justice Alito, and it has been confirmed as being authentic by Justice Roberts, and he did issue statements about it. And this is an egregious thing that it has been leaked. That is awfully terrible. It speaks volumes about where we are right now in our society and how we are tearing down norms. Most people assume that it is some leftist clerk who took action, and which there's some verified libs and stuff who are supporting that decision of claiming that they're heroes, but in reality, this person should be disbarred at the least, if not prosecuted. So they are looking into it and investigating it. Justice Roberts is not okay with what went down. No one should be okay with it, and it's a tactic that's either meant to intimidate these justices into changing their mind from public peer pressure, or and if that's not the case, obviously that could happen, and some people are crazy enough that they can be inflamed enough to maybe do something. There were barricades that they put around the Supreme Court last night, and there were crowds that went out there and started protesting, etc. And things got a bit heated. I don't think nothing like physical from what I could tell happened, but there was definitely tension. And this is a draft opinion. It's possible that they may not make it public or whatever until like 2 months. And this may not be the final form, but some people were saying they should just go ahead and publish it now, since it's out there, to, I guess, kind of end the circus of the pressuring for the next 2 months. But it looks like it's going down for sure. So I when I found that out, when I saw that, I was on TikTok actually because I was busy doing some other things, and someone was like, "Did you see that?" And so I looked it up. I started like screaming. And my sister's like, "Are you okay, Christina?" And I am like, "Oh my gosh, they're striking down Roe v. Wade." And this is a really huge deal. I know people have very vast opinions on abortion, but come on, Roe v. Wade, it was a terrible, terrible ruling, and they didn't make a good case to bring it up. I mean, their case was basically don't strike down Roe v. Wade because we want it. There just wasn't a lot of logic on the side of the pro-abortion arguments, and there really isn't. I mean, that's why they use all these phrases like the woman's right, her choice, and her health, and there's like no consideration for the child, and that really drives me up a wall when we have conversations and people totally, absolutely ignore the child and gives them no moral consideration whatsoever. And that an example that isn't Biden's statements and other people's statements regarding this. So, like, I was tweeting at Kristen Sinema. People are mad at her. They're super mad at her because she won't end the filibuster, or didn't end the filibuster. I don't know if her mind is going to change, but Joe Manchin said he still believes in the filibuster. So Democrats who are planning on trying to overthrow the court, and pack the court, or force through some kind of vote to make a federal protection of abortion, which that can get struck down as unconstitutional anyway. It's not going to go anywhere, because if Manchin isn't for breaking the filibuster, and they definitely don't have enough conservative votes, and they're about to lose a lot of majorities in other places anyway. They're about to get shellacked. And for anyone who's afraid that this is going to be a huge drive out issue in the midterms, I think Democrats have pretty much already maxed out their college educated white woman base, or just women base anyway. So may not make a difference on the political pendulum. But we are going to have to continue making our debates state to state, and trying to make sure that we protect the lives of the unborn, but also help women. A lot of women, when you debate, or when you talk to people who have had abortions, they talk about how at the clinics they said, it's just a pea size, doesn't mean anything. It's just a glob of cells and other things like that. And they help to try to dehumanize the child, so people don't see the value when they go and they take that life. So a lot of people have been misled. A lot of people don't understand science. A lot of these people have never even seen a sonogram of their child. So sometimes the right can get pretty testy. I've seen some pretty nasty, testy remarks from the right. Sometimes, um, like an example, let the libs kill their kids, would be awful, and obviously undercuts the whole right to life argument. um, or women who have an abortion. I saw this great video last night. A friend of mine was replying to somebody who there was someone did a video talking about a young woman who died on the abortion table, and there was a comment that said she got what she deserved. And so a friend of mine talked about how she's like, if I wonder what would have happened to me if I had died on the table when I was 16, people have just seen me as the girl who, had an abortion? They wouldn't have known that I would have come to regret that I would come to later get pregnant and love my child, that I would come to be a fierce pro-life advocate. And it was amazing, but like commentary. I'm gonna take it and like recut it and add some music. And even how she shot it was like really kind of neat, because it was in the dark, and she kind of looked, and she had all these tattoos, so it was almost kind of like skeleton-ish kind of vibes that I got, that she's like thinking about what could have happened if she had died in that scenario, and people didn't get to see her live her life long enough to make a decision to change. So like, people do need to be more compassionate toward a lot of these people, because a lot of it is just based on the fact that women do not have true informed consent. So that is a big battle. Like, I do want a total ban, don't get me wrong, that is like the fight. But um part of that's going to be education. So we do have to continue to not we need to be persuasive, on top of having the facts. And if you're always going in like a rocket, just trying to like blow up everything in your path, and you're not going to get to the end game and your end goal. And I sometimes I know I can be not as rough as anything that I've explained, but I know I can get a little snappy sometimes with folks. Just depends how people decide to push my buttons. But this is a lot of people are very passionate about it, and I'm excited. I'm excited, optimistic. It seems like we've had a couple wins in the past couple weeks. A lot of leftist tears overflowing. So before we get to the leak, the response from the White House, response from some Democrats, some of the decisions, and I had a couple snippets to read that I had picked out. Ben Shapiro did a pretty good breakdown, if you want to go watch his show later, of the ruling. But I'd recommend, go ahead and reading it for yourself, because it is a thorough breakdown of Roe v. Wade and the Casey case. And They just didn't make any sense. And a lot of people have recognized that Roe v. Wade has had some issues, have had some problems, and the fact that the court at the time, which by the way, ruling all men, made that decision for all these for everyone down the line. They recognize that they made a mistake or they went about it the wrong way. Even Ginsburg has acknowledged that because she thought the court was kind of too sweeping, and she had wished that instead of using this like right to privacy, that it had been about an advancement of women's rights. So a lot of people don't like how it was done and agree that there were issues with the case. So it should not have been hard to grasp that we get here eventually. It is still a little hard to believe just because it's been a long road, man. It's been a really long road. Talking about 61 million lives taken since the decision. That's a lot of brutality, man. But we're here and we're gonna keep pressing forward and take the win while we have it. Before we jump into everything, I do encourage you guys to go blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website. Please check out like the video that I did when I went to the Right to Life March. I'll probably share that when I get done with this, because that was really uplifting, and I was very glad to go. And I thank people who did decide to sponsor that trip as well. Black T News hopes to do some more things like that, but it was a really good journey, and to see so many people who were revved up and ready to support life, who were also factually informed and compassionate toward the woman and the child. So you can check out other stuff like that, different articles. Biden was talking about how every religion and stuff makes it like it's a question for Roe v. like when does life begin and stuff. And I'm like, sir, aren't you Catholic? Like, come on. He's the Catholic president. So I shared an article about the Bible and what it says about life and etc. I don't make Christian arguments when I talk about abortion, but when people do bring up the Bible to try to dunk on Christians, I will slay you. With the facts. So I have that article. I did just share that on Facebook. If you haven't read it, it's a good article. So check out different stuff on the website. Check out different merchandise that I have, like the My Money, My Business, which is really relevant right now. Someone asked me under Live Action's TikTok page, man, it's like people hate follow them. I think people hate follow them. But they're like, it's not your body. It has nothing to do with you. It shouldn't matter to you. I'm like, oh, it has nothing to do with me. Like, what about my taxpayer dollars? Do they not go to clinics to fund abortion clinics? And there is a Hyde Amendment, which Biden and Bernie people are trying to, get rid of. But the money still goes to the clinics so they can pay it toward their lights and help to subsidize. Maybe your abortion doesn't cost as much, so then get you in the door or whatever. So I don't want it to go to Planned Parenthood and all these places at all. So my taxpayer dollars go to that. The government these clinics fund Democrats, the people I don't like, as far as their voting and what they want to pass, but they give money to them. Then you have our government who buys fetal remains for experiments and all sorts of crazy stuff. So I think as a taxpayer, it's clear that it's not just an issue between a woman and her doctor. And when you start asking for dollars with particular things, it's really not a personal matter anymore. So you just have to kind of remember that when you want your personal freedoms and your individuality, but are you willing to stand as an individual is the question. So yeah, I that's why I made this My Money, My Business shirt. So you guys can check that out on the website. Also got like the You Are Not That Special. Got the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. I love that speech from Frederick Douglass, which it really, really gives me vibes of like the pro-life movement when I read it. And so it's a really great speech. Also got the GOAT hoodies, GOAT t-shirts, and the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racist stuff on the back, which maybe I don't think it's on there, but saying that we need abortion, especially for women of color, I always find that interesting. But let's go on. You guys know I like to start with something humorous, and you know that Ketanji Brown Jackson was asked, what is a woman? She didn't know how to define it. She said, I'm not a biologist. Well, seems like there's a lot of biologists now talking about we need women's rights, etc., blah blah blah. But how do you know these people are women? And you're saying, oh, these men, like people are mad because Fox News had a panel talking about it, but it was all men on the panel, though, like CNN and other like places did the same thing. Which, by the way, why is CNN having Tubin talk about this issue at all, knowing that Tubin knocked up his mistress and wanted to force her to get an abortion? Like compromise. I wouldn't have him talk about these positions. I They shouldn't have hired him back after he got caught diddling himself on the Zoom call, frankly. But I certainly wouldn't have him up talking about anything related to women's issues, and especially not related anything to abortion, because he's a scumbag. But I saw this meme, comfortably snug, posted it. I assume he made it. But the libs birthing people, I don't want to play with you anymore. So that is from Toy Story, of course. And so birthing people was the language that people had. And of course, they were saying men can get pregnant and all kinds of stuff. So now it's back to no uterus, no opinion. And a lot of people are talking about women's rights and the importance of women's rights and how women are just absolutely devastated today. So I thought that was an appropriate meme for the day before we go into it. So again, Politico got an exclusive leak about Justice Alito's opinion, which was we understand is a majority opinion. We assume it's 5-4, though I guess we have the three liberal justices writing their dissent, and we assume that Roberts is swinging their way. But Alito wrote this opinion, very great opinion, a very good tactical takedown of Roe v. Wade and Casey and stuff. But it's going to overturn just Roe v. Wade. People were concerned or thinking that they would just like try to not take down Roe v. Wade, but keep the Mississippi bill, and like Ben Shapiro, other people like suspected that. Will Chamberlain thought it would be 5-4 in overturning Roe v. Wade. So congrats to him, because he called it. I was hoping when I was listening to some of the arguments, it sounded like there was no good explanation to not take down Roe v. Wade. But again, I was just being a bit of a pessimistic, just a little afraid to hope. So we are now in this position where they are striking it down. So people who really, really didn't like Trump, and if you have, I mean, your reasons are your reasons, but this is a monumental thing that was accomplished because of the 2016 election and his presidency. People were very mad. I saw Jill Stein trending because people were mad that people voted for Jill Stein and not enough people voted for Hillary Clinton, which Hillary Clinton on the debate stage defended partial birth abortion. And I saw people make posts about how they didn't like Trump and they didn't want to go that way. Of course, people are upset about the Hollywood Access tape, and they just didn't know if they should throw their support behind him because they didn't frankly trust him, and they didn't trust that he was going to do what he said he was going to do. But one particular post that I saw, they said that when he talked about abortion in response to her defending partial birth abortion, they said that was like the first time they kind of saw like some kind of humanity in Trump a bit, like caring about, see where it seemed like he cared about, something bigger than himself. And so that was like, and you can say, well, there are definitely moments when he shows that he's beyond caring about himself. But that, I'm saying, that was the moment that I saw some people wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to have to swing my support to this guy right here. So it was like slim margins in places. It was like 10,000 votes in Michigan, where I'm from. So he ended up taking the win, and she was just extraordinarily radical. So since we're talking about it, let's go a little bit down memory lane with Hillary Clinton. First, I want to show her reaction. And it's also funny because the Met Gala was last night, which I never know it's the Met Gala until like there's tweeting about it and people are like mocking the dresses and all the other kind of stuff. Maybe I'll like show some crazy ones tomorrow, but when they got out or whatever, they're like, I suppose, looking on their phones like, oh crap, like you go here, you have your big elitist dumb party, and then it's just ruined. It's so ruined by this wonderful, wonderful news. So here is Hillary Clinton. Not surprising, but still outrageous. This decision is a direct assault on the dignity, rights, and lives of women, not to mention decades of settled law. It will kill and subjugate women, even as a vast majority of Americans think abortion should be legal. What an utter disgrace. So, a couple things wrong with this. You do not need abortion to have dignity, rights, and all that kind of other stuff. You also don't even need abortion to help you decide whether or not you're going to be a parent, to control your destiny. You don't need to do that. It's just not necessary. And you know what? Sometimes those happy little accidents, unplanned children in your lives are really, really extraordinary blessing. I have a friend, she said she was going on a pretty dark path, and her child, her unexpected pregnancy is what I guess jolted her brain in place and told her, like, you need to get your life in line, in order. And she literally says her child saved her life. People reject responsibility and self-sacrifice, and they don't realize how much meaning there is serving someone else, loving someone else, protecting someone else, taking care of someone else. But feeling women with all these, it's just me, I, like a lot of abortion arguments just sound like that scene from Hook when he's like, I want a puppy, I want a cookie, me, I. That's what it normally sounds like when I'm debating people and they're explaining why they feel that they have this right that's obviously not acknowledged in the Constitution at all. You do not have a right to just kill people. As a matter of fact, people have a right to life. If you kill someone, you're going to be prosecuted and go to jail, correct? So Hillary Clinton just has bad takes. Of course, women die in abortions all the time. It's not just men who are killed in abortions. Women have men and children. Pregnant women have men, and they also have women, so they're killing one or the two. There's not like 52 genders in between. They're killing one or the other. So a lot of women die in abortion, and women also die during abortions. And there's some places like in DC, they have so little restrictions that some places could be really dangerous. I mean, the abortion clinic where they had the 5 fetuses that they wanted an autopsy with because they believed that they were killed illegally, but the mayor and people didn't want to do that. So #justice for the 5. If you haven't seen those pictures, they're hard to look at, but I did show them on the show, but I'm not going to show you today. You just go look them up. Live Action has like video, they have pictures, but it's egregious. But that clinic, that a doctor actually got sued for wrongful death, I believe, because a woman, they found like fetal remains in her like lung tissue. So when you have an abortion, the purpose is to terminate that life, and then you have to get it out of you, and you could be in some serious danger if you don't. Women are harmed in abortion, not just physically, not just the risk of them losing their lives, not just the fact that women are killed, little tiny women and men. They're both equally important. But there's also the terrible regret that women have. And there's also the fact, again, that women do not have true informed consent. And again, I really do hate when people mention abortion and they only talk in terms of the woman, but they do not acknowledge any sort of rights or dignity for the child. But I'm not surprised because, again, let's go back to Hillary Clinton. Here's some things that she said in the 2016 campaign trail.
For many years.
When or if does an unborn child have constitutional rights?
Well, under our laws currently, that is not something that exists. The unborn person doesn't have constitutional rights. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't do everything we possibly can in the vast majority of instances to, help a mother who is carrying a child and wants to make sure that child will be healthy, to have appropriate medical support. It doesn't mean that you don't do everything possible to try to fulfill your obligations, but it does not include sacrificing the woman's right to make decisions. And I think that's an important distinction that under Roe v. Wade we've had enshrined under our Constitution.
You had said you're for some.
So here's the problem with that. Like, if, for example, there's a story about a woman who was shot and she was carrying twins, and so she survived, but her twins died. The police were looking for someone for committing double homicide. If the babies have no right to life, would you agree that there's no reason to charge someone for double homicide? They have no right to life. Like think these things through. This isn't just like jargon that you just throw around. Do they have a right to life or do they not? And if they don't have a right to life, why would you I guess try to defend their lives and their rights after they're gone? Or why would you charge someone with murders? Scott Peterson was charged for the murder of his wife and his unborn child. Someone tried to tell me that they never charge people for the fetus being killed, and obviously not true. Obviously not true. So that's what she was going with. That's what she was going with, that the unborn just has no rights. And if they have no rights, then why wouldn't you justify abortion up until like the moment of birth, which there have been laws that have been pushed and passed that makes that argument. So that's what Hillary Clinton was talking about. Pretty extreme. But people won't answer this question though. Like where does, at least she answered it, I guess. There's people today who don't want to answer it. I asked Haley Stevens, like, when does the unborn get a right to life? She would not answer. She dodged. Tried to change the subject. Like, where do you go to school? Where do you live? And I'm like, I go here and blah 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 blah. I'm like, but you didn't answer my question. And she said, oh, you're really pushing me, huh? I'm like, it's a very simple question. And she just kind of grinned hard and was like, thanks for coming out. People don't want to answer that question, but she did. And obviously it did hurt her. And she was questioned about it on The View.
Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton.
And Secretary, I want to ask you about some comments that you made over the weekend on Meet the Press regarding abortion. You said, quote, the unborn person doesn't have constitutional rights. So my question is, at what point does someone have constitutional rights? And are you saying that a child on its due date, just hours before delivery, still has no constitutional rights?
Under our law, that is the case, Paula. I support Roe v. Wade because I think it is an important statement about the importance of a woman making this most difficult decision with consultation by whom she chooses, her doctor, her faith, her family. And under the law and under certainly that decision, that is the way we structure it. I would just make 2 points.
Yeah, we don't care about your 2 points. So she again, she reiterated, even hours up until it's born, doesn't have any sort of rights. Doesn't have any sort of rights. That's crazy. I think that's crazy. She says that's how the system under our law, and that's what she supports. By the way, Roe v. Wade is the issue that people like Ginsburg have mentioned, and already said this, but it spoke to a right to privacy rather than this actually being an enshrined right that a woman has as far as making choices and stuff about her body. And again, there's a body within her body. It's bodily autonomy. When people mention this, like, take a note, guys. When people mention that my body, my choice, bodily autonomy is about you making decisions about your life and your future. I do not consider abortion to be a bodily autonomy, like, really discussion, because it's about two bodies, two lives, and 2 futures. The least you can do is do nothing and not take the life of the unborn. Or you better have a darn good reason why you think you ought to, but people don't have a really consistent framework when you press them on it. And that's why people really shift toward woman's choice, woman's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't care about your privacy and your bodily autonomy when it came to like the vaccine, when it came to lockdowns, when it came to masking. People believe that you should tell women what to do all the time. Someone who was pro-life was like, I don't like abortion, et cetera, but I don't feel like you should be able to tell a woman what to do. I'm like, why? I'm like, it literally happens all the time. People literally tell you what to do every day. As a matter of fact, you have the right to tell someone what to do. You have a First Amendment right to do that. You can't force someone with a government gun to do something. So there's that, but you definitely have the right to say, hey, this is right, this is wrong, you should and you should not do that, and have an opinion and speak on it. Yes, you absolutely do. It is your constitutional right. So I don't think their bodily autonomy arguments really extend. It's very limited. Like I mentioned the vaccines, et cetera, stuff like that, but my bodily autonomy also includes my labor. Yet people feel entitled to things like healthcare being a right, which is a commodity, but they believe that it should be a right because I don't know, they just feel like humanity should just be so decent enough to just provide that sort of care. So they do believe that we have some obligations toward each other to the point where they feel that you should have to be able to pay to cover their healthcare costs, even though you may be like, I don't want to work all these hours and then have to pay for your healthcare. Well, they don't respect your bodily autonomy that produced that labor. And they believe you should be paying for college. They believe that you should be paying for maternity care and all these other things. And I'm not saying that we don't have some kind of moral obligation to help people or be charitable. We're really big on people being charitable in deciding to voluntarily do a lot of these things without the threat of like the government gun. But when people talk about bodily autonomy, it does seem conveniently limited to particular things when it's, I guess, just specific things that they want. They feel like you should be obligated to them, but they shouldn't be obligated to someone else. Even if that someone didn't magically spring up in your uterus, obviously there had to be actions taken to get that baby there, which in 99% of the cases are consensual. It's not a squatter. It didn't just crawl up there. There was no Stargate portal that it popped in there. Procreation leads to possible procreation, like someone being created, and that's how the baby got there. And it's something that every other human being that is on this planet had the privilege of sitting in a uterus, in a womb, and coming forth. It's not a special right that we mean to grant to children, but a woman and the child both have a sacred right to life. So Hillary Clinton, those were her positions at the time, and they were very extreme. I don't have the clip where she defended partial birth abortion on the debate stage, but I feel, and that was the only debate. Well, no, I feel like that second debate, Trump did really good. That first debate between them, he was very strong first like 15 minutes when they were talking about economy and other kind of stuff like that. But then it was downhill, and she definitely baited him and had this like hit piece at the very end that she planted. And I didn't think it was his finest moment. The second debate, when he was like, you'd be in jail, that stuff, he was like gangster. That was a fun debate, man. But the one with Chris Wallace, which the final like Fox News one, when they mentioned abortion, which I think they hadn't mentioned it before in the other debates, I think that was a really defining moment for the stark contrast between the two of them. And here's also a moment when Trump did mention that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court.
And people didn't believe him. I don't blame people for not totally believing him though, like, because there's some people you can go and you look at their record and they're like, they didn't deliver here, they didn't deliver here. Like people wondering about Biden and student loans, like you do realize like he's one of the reasons why it's so hard, like why you can't like default in that stuff, right? Like he has a history that people could have watched. Now, will he make some decisions and stuff now because he's so underwater in the polls? Maybe because Biden has a spine of jelly, so he's gonna do what he thinks is politically advantageous for him. But FYI, you could have did a little bit more research on the fella. Trump didn't have that sort of background. You know, he had his show. Like I watched Celebrity Apprentice and Apprentice, the regular one. So I he's obviously a famous guy. He's been in the public eye, and you can look at different things through his life, read his books and whatever, try to get a sense of the guy. And I felt like I had a sense of the guy more than like other people. There are some people who were just like loved him so much, but seemed like really, really detached from him at all. It seemed like they didn't really understand them. But there was no like evidence of how he would actually govern. So people being concerned about what he would do, I understand. Like Ben Shapiro was like, might as well not vote for him. He lived in California at the time anyway, so wasn't going to do much. And I guess besides give him another, popular vote, but he didn't like think about the long-term effects. He was concerned about the long-term effects of maybe Trump, but also he didn't think that he was going to deliver on things that he said he was going to do. And so eventually when Trump did nominate Gorsuch, Ben had a Trump hat and was like, I'm glad to be proven wrong. Now there's other never Trumpers who are just utterly deranged and have lost their minds, and to the point where some of them aren't even conservative or Republican anymore. It's pretty crazy. But he really did deliver on that list. So he provided a list of possible justices, and people were very pleased with Gorsuch. People do have to also credit Mitch McConnell for this, striking down of Roe v. Wade as well. You got to give the guys the credit. I did not know if Republicans were going to hold it together as far as squeezing out Merrick Garland, but they obviously pulled it off. I remember feeling like we had saved the country when Gorsuch got the nomination. Kavanaugh was appointed after, like, oh my gosh, you remember Kavanaugh's situation, how awful the media was, the liberals were. I need to go into it, but man, it was crazy. And then when Ginsburg passed away, you had the opening for Amy Coney Barrett to come in. So if people were saying, if we have this majority and it doesn't end up overturning Roe v. Wade, like this will be a huge loss. But it looks like that's what's happening. So big kudos to Trump, big kudos to McConnell. You had the Democrats who had a press conference earlier and was saying, oh, this isn't your granddaddy's Republican Party, it's the Trump Party.
In getting this accomplished. So that's the bottom line here, folks. We have a great contrast between the Republican vision for America and our vision for America. This isn't your grandfather's Republican Party, America. It's Donald Trump's Republican Party. It's a right-wing Republican Party. It's a party where your children will have less rights than you did. So.
Yeah, saying this is Trump's party, and I don't know what that's supposed to do as far as moving the needle, especially on a day like today when this news has come out, because to me that just makes me have more affection toward Trump knowing that we've had this great outcome. So like if something awful had happened, now I know they think it's awful, and Hillary talked about how so much of the country was for abortion. The country is very they have different levels to where they're comfortable with it. Most people don't want it after even like the first trimester. And as people get kind of more educated on fetal development, because there's a lot of people who don't know anything about fetal development, don't, understand how developed a 10-week fetus is, where like most of the major organs have already formed. At like 12 weeks, I think it is when you start like having your nerves and stuff like that. Like, have you seen? I've seen an MRI of a 16-week fetus. It looks very much like a baby. And the Mississippi band is 15 weeks. I saw my nephew at 14 weeks in the womb, just moving all around, and I just so much love that comes on. Well, within you just explodes within you when you see that little guy on the screen. It's not even it's my nephew's. Not I didn't even birth the kid, and there's so much love for him. I just can't imagine doing this. But you know what? There's a reason why Planned Parenthood and all these organizations don't want women to see their sonograms. There's a pro-life group. I think it's a Michigan-based group, but they'll go to different clinics and they will show them, like, will beg them, like, hey, will you come see a sonogram of your baby? And when they can convince women to do that, they will often change their minds when they can see that humanity of their child, and they'll try to make it work. Like, whatever kind of doubts and fears and stuff that they had, they can push that aside because they do recognize the humanity of their child. So again, I don't appreciate any sort of abortion narrative where the unborn are a part of the conversation. When people are like, it's women's health care, I always ask, is the baby healthier after the abortion? When they call it health care, it's what I always ask that question. And I'm not necessarily just trying to be smart. I'm just trying to be honest. Like, are we aware of what it is? Because a Planned Parenthood, their pamphlets and stuff, like, if you go to a medical textbook dictionary, like, it's very honest about what it is. It terminates the pregnancy and ending in the life of the fetus. And a fetus isn't some magical, like, I don't know, glob of nothing. It's a human child. And even if you call it a child, you get into big arguments with people who don't like the word child. They don't like the word baby. A fetus is just an unborn human baby. A child is just a human being, like, under the age of puberty, or maturity, I guess you could say. But in a colloquial sort of sense, I'm a grown person, but I'm also my mother's child. So it's not inappropriate to use that sort of terminology, but it's amazing how many people get triggered when you mention that kind of stuff. So anyway, big kudos to Trump, big kudos to McConnell and Republicans who made this happen. It's been a really long road. I do want to play Ginsburg, something she had said about Roe v. Wade, because she wasn't 100% for it either, because she did see some problems with it.
President Clinton became president.
I'm going to skip it up a little bit when she starts getting to it.
Overwhelmingly supportive of my nomination. But I had written a comment on Roe v. Wade, and it was not 100% applauding that decision. What I said was, the court had an easy target because the Texas law was the most extreme in the nation. Abortion could be had only if necessary to save the woman's life. Doesn't matter that her health would be ruined, that she was the victim of rape or incest. I thought Roe v. Wade was an easy case, and the Supreme Court could have held that most extreme law unconstitutional and put down its pen. Instead, the court wrote an opinion that made every abortion restriction in the country illegal in one fell swoop. And that was not the way that the court ordinarily operates. You know, it waits till the next case and the next case. Anyway, it was that some women felt that I should have been 100% in favor of Roe v. Wade, and because I wasn't.
Yeah, some people, I guess, had an issue with her a bit because she wasn't, like, totally gung-ho about it. But she's for, obviously, for abortion and stuff, but there was also another comment that she had made that she had wished that instead of like a right to privacy issue, it was more focused along the lines of women just having this right. Now, of course, women don't have the right to an abortion, but she's also talked about how the fact that Roe v. Wade just fueled the pro-life movement, and she thought Americans were making progress. I wouldn't call it progress or whatever toward the abortion rights and stuff, but the pro-life movement was really fueled by this ruling. I also want to play Scalia, this interview that he had with Piers Morgan back in the day, and his opinion on it. Which, when Scalia did pass, that was a huge shift as far as the election, because even people who were not comfortable with Trump, like, they would go around the state saying the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court. And so that talking point is really like panning out today, ain't it? Oh my gosh.
Turn to Roe v. Wade, because you, Justice Scalia, you had very strong opinions about this at the time. I know you do now. Why were you so violently opposed to it?
I wouldn't say violently. I'm a peaceful man. You mean adamantly opposed? Adamantly. Basically, because the theory that was expounded to impose that decision was a theory that does not make any sense, and that is, namely, the theory of substantive due process. There's a due process clause in the Constitution which says that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. That is obviously a guarantee, not of life, not of liberty, not of property. You can be deprived of all of them, but not without due process. My court, in recent years, has invented what is called substantive due process by simply saying some liberties are so important that no process would suffice to take them away. And that was the theory used in Roe versus Wade, and it's a theory that is simply a lie. The world is divided into substance and procedure.
So should abortion be illegal in your eyes?
Should it be illegal?
Yeah.
I don't have public views on what should be illegal and what shouldn't. I have public views on what the Constitution prohibits and what it doesn't prohibit.
But I mean,
so yeah, he was a great justice. Gone too soon. I'm not gonna play the whole interview because I'm running a little behind. But yeah, Roe v. Wade was decided on some crazy stuff, and people protect it so fiercely, even though it's like held together with like shoestring, not even like duct tape. And by the way, Ginsburg and Scalia, very, very far apart on the issues, but they were good friends. They had a great friendship. I even wrote an article after Ginsburg passed about things that the left should remember, but they probably won't, as far as Ginsburg. And one of the things I mentioned was their relationship, because people feel like you need to burn all sorts of bridges today over political issues when you had those two people who were working together in such a tight, close-knit thing with differing on opinions that could really, really change the landscape of the country, but they're not like shivving each other, in the bathroom or something like that. So we're so politically toxic today, and I don't think it's about to get any better right now. But it's too bad that we can't remember that we can have civil discourse, but still you be civil. And that's unfortunate. So I want to get on to Biden's comment about it. So at first, when he released this, he did not know that it was accurate. But he said, "We do not know whether this draft is genuine, whether it reflects the final decision of the court." And now, obviously, we know that it is Roberts did confirm that. With the critical caveat, I want to be clear on 3 points about the cases before the Supreme Court. First, my administration argued strongly before the court the defense of Roe v. Wade. We said that Roe is based on a long line of precedent recognizing the 14th Amendment's concept of personal liberty against the government interference with intensely personal decisions. I believe that a woman's right to choose is fundamental. Roe has been the law of the land for almost 50 years, and the basic fairness of the stability of our law demand that not be overturned. Second, shortly after the enactment of the Texas law SB 8 and other laws restricting women's reproductive rights, I directed my Gender Policy Council and the White House's counsel office to prepare options for administration response to the continued attack on abortion and reproductive rights under a variety of possible outcomes in the cases pending before the Supreme Court. We will be ready when any ruling is issued. Third, if the court does overturn Roe, it will fall on our nation's elected officials at all levels of government to protect women's right to choose, and it will fall on voters to elect pro-choice officials this November. At the federal level, we will need more pro-choice senators and pro-choice majority of the House to adopt legislation that codifies Roe, which I will work to pass and sign into law. So again, there's no right to abortion. And again, I hate when people have all this language and have a discussion about abortion, but don't take any consideration of the unborn, which, by the way, Biden in 1982 did want there to be an amendment to the Constitution that would, I guess, supersede Roe. So that's an interesting piece of information. I guess that that was going around in 2019 and stuff, with the election primaries and stuff. And he even wrote about killing different abortion sort of things within the Senate. So he was definitely had some more pro-life stances, which, he was a proud Catholic too. So I'm sure that did fuel him, but somewhere his wires got crossed, and he decided, to just step in line with this particular agenda. And I remember when he was first elected, there was a Catholic reporter who asked some questions, and they're like, "Don't worry about it. Joe Biden's Catholic." But he's become a very pro-choice president. And again, I hate when people mention all this stuff and don't give any consideration to the unborn. It's just really disgusting, and it's childish and cowardly, in my opinion. We can at least be a little bit more honest about what we're actually talking about. And by the way, the ruling just totally dismantled their argument, and they said they made a strong case. They really didn't. They really didn't. They really didn't. And Alito totally dismantles that. I don't believe I'm going to be able to go through all my little snippets that I had selected from it. Maybe we'll go through that a little bit more tomorrow. But it was leaked. This ruling was leaked. This is a huge precedent. Nothing like this has actually happened before. There was a leak about the original Roe, though, but that was some memos about the discussions, and then it was leaked a little before the decision was coming down, when it was about to come down, not in a whole entire opinion. And I believe it was meant to push the political needle forward, to invigorate the Democrats, to, I don't know, maybe even intimidate the justices and shift opinions and stuff. We don't know who did it, but there is going to be an investigation. Yesterday, a news organization published a copy of a draft opinion of a pending case. Justices circulate draft opinions internally as routine and essential part of the court's confidential, deliberate work. Although the document described in yesterday's reports is authentic, it does not represent a decision by the court or the final position of any member of the issues in the case. Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. provided the following statement: "To the extent this betrayal of the confidence of the court was intended to undermine the integrity of our operations, it will not succeed. The work of the court will not be affected in any way. We at the court are blessed to have a workforce, permanent employee, and law clerks alike, intensely loyal to the institution, dedicated to the rule of law. Court employees have exemplary and important tradition of respecting the confidentiality of the judicial process and upholding the trust of the court. This was a singular and egregious breach of that trust that is an affront to the court and the community of the public servants who work here. I have directed the marshal of the court to launch an investigation into the source of the leak. So, I saw some people say, "Don't have the FBI do it; they'll just cover it up." So the court marshal is going to be investigating, trying to pin down who did this leak. If they do find out who did it, at the very least, the person should be disbarred. But there could be possible criminal prosecution as well. This is not. We were promised normal if we got Joe Biden. Like the return to normalcy, that was the pitch. That was what some people believed. They're like, I want politics to be boring. I don't want to think about all the time. I don't want to think about Trump and have this derangement syndrome. I just want to be quiet, etc. This is not going back to any sort of established norms. It's not. This sort of leak is insane. But hopefully they get to the bottom of this, because someone deserves to be punished for something this insane. I want to go through a couple of reactions. Bernie Sanders, he ended up deleting this. I'm told Congress must pass legislation that codifies Roe v. Wade as a law of the land in this country now, all caps. And if there aren't 60 votes in the Senate to do it, and there are not, we must end the filibuster to pass it with 50 votes. Joe Manchin was asked about the filibuster, and he said he believes in the filibuster. So he's not going to do that. Sinema's probably still not going to do it, though she did issue a statement about, she does support Roe v. Wade, but that doesn't mean that she's going to flip on the filibuster. She's not stupid. Like I brought this up yesterday. She's still a Democrat. Like there was a joke that Trevor Noah did at the White House Correspondents' Dinner and about her being a closeted Republican, et cetera, and stuff like that. She's still a Democrat. Don't get it twisted. People in Arizona, you should still vote her out and get like a solid R in there. But she's not stupid. She's really not stupid. So to break the filibuster over something like this would be suicidal. And saying, let's say they break the filibuster, they codify Roe or whatever, and there's a flood of like Republicans, enthusiasts in November, take the House and take the Senate, etc. What stops Republicans from doing the same thing, like overruling that and stuff? Or if the court's just ruling that they're making some kind of unconstitutional law, like it's a states' rights issue, or at least that's what happens when Roe v. Wade is gone. It kicks back to the states. Now, in my opinion, I don't think Republicans can stop it right there, because if you do believe in the sanctity of life and it's about fighting for the life of the unborn, it can't end with like, states' rights. It sounds like the slavery thing. Like, just leave it up to the states. Like, you can't do that when you're having an egregious human rights violation. So I'm not going to be squishy and allow you to pretend or give the illusion that I'm all gung-ho and glad because Roe v. Wade got overturned and that's the end of the journey. That's not the end of the journey. But do I think that the Congress passing a law like that is going to be the end-all be-all? Like, no, I think probably what would be the best sort of thing, well, I mean, I would have liked maybe for if the SCOTUS had found, that the right to life had applied as opposed to the unborn, would have been great. But they're going to have to probably amend the Constitution and just let it be known that it does apply to the unborn. Are we there, like legislatively, where the nation would be like, yeah, the majority for that? Maybe not, but it's not there to enshrine abortion as a constitutional right. But we still need to have debates. But a lot of people want to shut them down. And people, I mentioned people don't really have informed consent. Someone had a discussion with me about how they're like, you guys just want to, why don't you like talk about how you can just end abortion rather than trying to ban it, because you can't ban it because people are still going to do it. And I'm like, well, it would save millions of lives. So I think that's why we should have a ban, but whatever. And also it's killing people. So like, why wouldn't that be pro-ban? I'm like, okay, fine. We can they're like, we need a comprehensive sex education. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, are we talking about teaching like about fetal development and what actually happens like when the child is forming within you after you procreate it? Because that would actually help to in lives, and we could also like teach people that abortion is an egregious thing. And when I was in high school, we weren't allowed to talk about it. They're like, nope, can't talk about it at all. Like in health class in high school, they're like, nope, it's not a discussion. We're not talking about the abortion at all. It was off the table. So we could talk about that, and I also suggested showing people images of aborted fetuses. I'm like, whoa, that's too far. I'm like, people need to know what this is, what's done. That is a corpse. It's not a lump of Play-Doh. It's a corpse. And so people have such misconstrued opinions. And people need to see that. When Emmett Till was killed, his mother had an open casket because people needed to see the brutality against her son. So I'm like, if you really want to end abortion because you secretly think it's some kind of awful thing, why not show that it's an awful thing? Because a lot of people just want to protect the institution of it. So Bernie Sanders ain't going to get what he wants, but they are going to be pushing hard. Amy Klobuchar also said, she went on TV talking about how basically you need to do the same thing. People are mad at Cinema. People are mad at Manchin for not killing the filibuster earlier and trying to codify Roe earlier. There's a Sawwell tweet that's crazy. The Republicans won't stop with banning abortion. They want to ban interracial marriage. Do you want to save that? Well, then you should probably vote. Yeah, don't look up any pictures of Thomas's wife, I guess. Come on. So this is what they're going with now. I'm really running late. So I'm going to show you some of the liberal stuff that they're saying to push that this is their new talking point, that because of the ruling and striking down certain things about like the privacy where people applied in other cases within like same-sex marriage and other stuff like that, that it'll end up striking down those things as well, which Biden also remarked that. But it's just not true, and the ruling specifically deals with that. So this is a Slate writer. Alito's draft opinion explicitly criticizes Lawrence versus Texas legalizing sodomy and Obergefell versus Hodges legalizing same-sex marriage. He says that, like abortion, these decisions protect phony rights that are not deeply rooted in history. So then he posted some stuff from the ruling, but he then conveniently just left some stuff out. So here's a little bit of the ruling. These attempts to justify abortion through appeals to a broader right to autonomy and to define one's concept of existence to prove too much. Casey's 505 U.S. at 851. Those criteria at high level of generality could license fundamental rights to illicit drug use, prostitution, and the like. None of these rights has any claim to deeply rooted history. What sharply distinguishes the abortion right from the rights recognized in the cases on which Roe and Casey rely is something that both these decisions acknowledge. Abortion destroys what these decisions call potential life, and what the law at issue is the case regards as the life of an unborn human being. None of those other decisions cited by Roe and Casey involve the critical moral question posed by abortion. They are therefore inopposite. They do not support the right to obtain an abortion, and by the same token, our conclusion that the Constitution does not confer such a right does not undermine them in any way. And here's another piece. Unable to show concrete reliance to the Roe and Casey themselves, the Solicitor General suggested that overruling those decisions would threaten the court's precedents, holding that due process clause protects other rights. Brief for the United States. I'll skip over that. That is not correct for the reasons we have already discussed, as even the Casey plurality recognize abortion is a unique act because it terminates a life or potential life. inherently different from marital intimacy, marriage, or procreation, and to ensure that our decision is not misunderstood or mischaracterized, we emphasize that our decision concerns the constitutional right to abortion and no other right. Nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. So this is the new talking point. So just FYI, know that Biden himself and Slate and all these other folks like Swalwell, who's a clown, and all, they're going to say, hey, this could lead to striking down other stuff. When they specifically took the time in the law to point out and say, hey, we're just talking about this specific thing. Now, they didn't have to do that, but they probably wanted to be as uncontroversial as possible, which is impossible for this to have been controversial. But and there's justices that feel like those other things should be touched. And the Oberfeld case was just, not well decided and stuff either. But they at least were like, we're not touching those things. We're not talking about these things that has no bearing on those things. So if people are going to use this Mississippi Dobbs case in the future, they'll be able to look and say, oh, this specifically does not apply to those other things. So people spreading this around, I understand it's a long opinion and probably everyone hasn't gotten through it yet, but you could at least try to figure out if what you're saying has been debunked. But that's not what they want. They want to spread this fear. It's like the new Don't Say Gay bill, like the bill that didn't say that you can't say gay. So this is their new push, that they're going to use this ruling to strike down gay marriage. Now, they could have tried to make that case and just said that whole sort of bearing doesn't make sense and left that door open, but they purposely shut it behind them. So this is the new talking point. So FYI, just be aware of where it's going. Be aware of it's going. I want to show these libs freaking out a little bit. This is a Pennsylvania lieutenant governor said, let's be clear, the right to abortion is sacred. Democrats have to act quickly, get rid of the filibuster to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, finally codify Roe into law. We can't afford to wait. And this guy dunked him and said, sacred if Moloch is your God. That's a pretty good Bible reference. Here's another one. This person deleted their whole account after people went after them. I do wonder if these white supremacist lawmakers would feel if their little white daughters were raped and impregnated by black men. That's probably like the top of insanity that I've seen as far as reactions, but people push back and she promptly deleted her account. This is, I believe, someone who's written for, I think maybe they're written for Times and stuff, if I'm not mistaken. Here's another, unless a lib lies, there's another one that I wanted to show. Really quickly, let me get to the Biden's comments before I go. I'm sorry to go over, and I'm sorry, my sister who's waiting for me to pick her up. It's an exciting day, though. It's such an exciting day. So here's Biden talking about the ruling, and he does lie about it.
But even more, equally as profound is the rationale used. And it would mean that every other decision relating to the notion of privacy is thrown into question. I realize this goes back a long way, but one of the debates I had with Robert Bork was...
Okay, I'm not interested in hearing about his whole debate with Bork, but I just wanted to let you know that that is the talking point. Again, that is a talking point. They're trying to say that this ruling is going to strike down other rulings that people have found important. So again, they're trying to scare the crap out of the gay community. Like they're trying to scare the crap out of them with the Don't Say Gay bill, which is a parental rights and education bill. I'm not going to go into the whole spiel about it today, but what the sort of narrative that they had surrounding that was a lie. So they have a new lie to pitch to people. In the ruling, it specifically says it is only in regard to the rights to abortion. It is not touching that other stuff. So he is lying right here. I'm sure he probably didn't read the decision himself. But I'm sure he probably is aware of the fact, or people on his team are aware of the fact that they shut the door closed behind them on those issues. But this is the talking point that's going around, and this will continue to be the one going around. I'm pretty sure they'll probably saying on all the news shows or whatever. This is what Biden is saying. This is what people are going to be repeating. This is the talking point of the Democrat Party right now, and it's a lie. Please know that that is a lie. Last thing I want to mention is this comment he made about life not it being a question, because I just find it so ridiculous.
Think what Roe says. Roe says what all basic mainstream religions have historically concluded, that the existence of a human life and being is a question. Is it at the moment of conception? Is it 6 months? Is it 6 weeks? Is it quickening, like Aquinas argued? I mean, so the idea that we're going to make a judgment that is going to say that no one can make the judgment to choose to abort a child based on a decision by the Supreme Court, I think goes way overboard.
So just incoherent nonsense, not the most incoherent thing he said. But he's making the case that because people have different beliefs, and he specifically mentions religion, which reminder, because it might be hard to believe now, but he is supposed to be a Catholic, that because people have different ideas of where life begins, that then the court shouldn't be able to decide when it happens. The purpose of the court ruling on anything is they're supposed to talk about what the Constitution says. Like Scalia said, I don't make public opinions about what I feel should be legal or not legal. My job is to talk about what the Constitution talks about. Like, that's the role of the court. And so the court pretty much laid out a good case about why it's not constitutional and it should be struck down. And also how Roe was flawed from the start. It is a really, really big smackdown of Roe v. Wade. I'm sorry I don't have time to go through more of the reading of it. Maybe we can expand this more tomorrow. But he's trying to make a religious argument. He's trying to use a religious argument to justify people just being confused and questioning where life begins. First of all, the job of the court, again, is to say what the law says. And if people have questions and people have debates, and they can take up those debates and grievances with each other at the state level. And that is what we're going to do now. So that's probably a good thing, because the court being having these huge decisions that with like Roe v. Wade, which didn't make sense, and a lot of people acknowledged where it was flawed, and having that be the political hammer throughout all these years has not made us any more unified. So let people debate, and if they want to live in a blue state like California where they have all these egregious laws, they can do that, or they can, go to Texas or Florida or Mississippi. So people can do that. People can decide. They can vote with their feet and whatnot. But hopefully, end goal, I'm just gonna be honest, I want it gone because it's a huge human rights violation. But he's using a religious argument. But what does the science say? All these people follow the science, trust the science. It is absolutely life at conception. Now, the question whether you value that life, I don't actually care if you do. I think you should. On a moral level, I absolutely want you to do that. But I don't think it should really have a bearing on whether it's a life or not. Like, your whim shouldn't be able to determine whether someone should be able to live or not. People think that, by saying we have no objective morality, it's supposed to be some kind of good argument as to why we shouldn't have clear standards on where life begins. I think that's the opposite, because you may have a different opinion on when someone is valuable and when they should have rights, is precisely why we need to have the most clear, consistent, and fairest standards possible. And that's obviously at the beginning, the origin of our lives, and that is at conception. I don't want you to get to decide if Black people should have rights because you feel that they're a person or not. And I don't want you to be able to decide whether or not the unborn should get rights because you don't value them as a person or not. I want the most even playing field. So Biden, he's not good debating this issue, and he had to lie in the other clip, obviously. So get ready to have more conversations, and I want them to be productive. So we got to be armed with some knowledge as we talk about these things. So if you can take out the time to read the opinion or read as much as you can, because it is long. But again, Ben did do a pretty good walkthrough of a lot of it on his show. So if you want to watch that later, like, I do recommend it. I did watch it today. But there's some good snippets that really take down Roe v. Wade and Casey within the opinion, and it also goes through this idea that it's some big precedent, or that it's this huge settled thing within our culture, and it really strikes down those things and debunks them really well. So I recommend going through that. But anyway, I do have to go. I'm sorry for running so late. Thank you guys for watching today. I hope you guys really enjoyed the show. I encourage you guys, if you did enjoy the show today and you enjoy what I do, please consider going to blacktnews.com and leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. I appreciate all the support that you guys give, but I am asking you to go the extra mile to support Black Tea News. Also consider getting different merchandise. Like, I'm gonna have some more pro-life stuff out, but the My Money, My Business, very relevant. So please, pick that up, pick up different stuff. Make sure you follow me across all my different social media platforms, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook, etc. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, there are links in the description. I got to get going. I will see you guys tomorrow. God bless the USA.